There'd be times where people would come in and they'd just be like, hey, thanks. Do you have anything else?
Hello and welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about graphic designers and the silly, awkward, downright embarrassing mistakes we make on the way to making just about anything, because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest. He's a legendary designer whose work spans the gamut from books to identity work to posters, type, and more. Through his firm, Aufuldish and Warner, he's worked with the likes of Denver Art Museum, SF MoMA, the Nature Conservancy, Aperture Foundation, among others since 1990. His accolades span decades, having received awards or exhibited with the likes of Cooper Hewitt, LACMA, Graphis, and the Letterform Archive. He was even elected to be a member of the prestigious Alliance Graphique Internationale, or AGI, in 2011 and an AAGA fellow in 2019. And these days, he serves as a professor of graphic design at CCA here in the Bay Area. It's Bob Aufuldish. Hi! The crowd is going wild. Oh, my God.
Wow, thank you for that. Wow. Just send that to my mom.
We have a mom delivery service just sort of built into the show.
Cool. I guess I didn't read that part of the
email. I'm sorry. Yeah, when you signed the agreement, it was in there along with when you had to. Do you remember when you had to enter all your bank information?
Yeah, I do remember that.
It was right after that.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, but the bank information is so we can get in touch with your mom.
Totally.
Don't ask me why that's the system. I don't know. But yeah, it's just so nice to sit down with you here. We're actually in your studio right now.
Yes, thank you for trekking all the way up to the wilds of Marin from San Francisco.
Honestly, it's kind of my pleasure. It's beautiful out here. I've been in, just sort of city mode. I don't think I've seen a tree properly in 3 days.
That's part of why we moved here. My wife got tired of us having to drive in a car to go to a park.
Oh, sure. You have a lot of parks here.
Totally.
I
yes. And we have a backyard. So we have our private park.
A secret park just for you.
Yes.
And there's a little door that goes to a secret universe.
We'll show you that later.
Yeah. There are children there that are kings, and I believe
the whole 9 yards. Very
religious lion, I think. I might be conflating two books, but I don't remember... don't remember enough, so that is sort of where we're at. And also for the listeners, it's a new season of the show, and I really wanted to kick things off with something big. It's something I love to do, but it's also deep, unforgiving winter, and I could not be more sun-starved in Portland, one of the only two cities on Earth to get 2 days of sun per year, with the other being Reykjavik. So when I was trying to decide, where am I going to travel, I put on my thinking cap, which is tall and cone-shaped and has the letters DUNCE sort of written down the side of it. And I thought, where can I go to talk to some awesome design folks that will also let my body soak up the very specific treat that is vitamin D?
And you got here, and suddenly the rains have arrived.
Well, see, this is sort of where I'm concerned, because... San Francisco, famously foggy. That's one of the two things that people know about San Francisco. But it doesn't, bucket. It doesn't dump like this. And I'm worried that I might have brought a terrible curse upon your city.
Well, we need the rain.
Well, that's good to hear. That is good to hear.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. Because usually January is our rainy time, and we got no rain in January.
Oh,
so that's
really?
bad.
Yeah, that is not good at all, actually.
No.
Yeah, I'm very used to this kind of weather up there, but this is I was in a restaurant last night. I was talking to a very nice fellow, and he told me that it never rains like this up here, and it was kind of what we in Portland would call a dry day. So it was not even this. So it's a little bit of a weird one. The other thing that sort of made me bring this up is to get here, I drove on the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge. This is my first time across that span.
All right.
Which I imagine you probably take every day.
Whenever I go to school, I have to drive that bridge. Yeah.
It's very easy. I will say I did not know that I was on it except for the assistance of Apple Maps. Because the fog and the rain at that point were so intense that you could not see
You couldn't even see the towers?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was
That's disappointing.
a very worrying thing. And like, it was kind of like being in, just inside the light box in a photo studio somehow. Everything is sort of blank and gray around you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was absolutely beautiful for my, selfie that I would have taken had it not caused me to die. It's very good light. But I was also like reminded of it because as I was driving on the bridge, Apple Maps now has like all these little 3D renderings of things. And they have a 3D rendering of the bridge. And for some reason, they've oriented it so that like the 3D model is so big that your screen is just constantly rotating because it has this 3D rendering of the bridge and it can't show you on the bridge and the bridge at the same time. So it's just like back and forth. And I'm like, when you cannot see anything around you, that is so distracting.
Yeah. It's like, is that what you want while you're driving?
I can tell you, no. And there's no excuse for that because Apple's here. So it's not like there's no one that would have been able to test that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this is an isolated problem to just my phone. But it was really wild to be just, completely like no sense of where forward actually was. Like you could barely see the tail lights in front of you.
Oh, you were robbed. Hopefully it's better on the drive back. But then, of course, it might be dark.
Yeah. I mean, the magic of winter. What can we do? Like, there's truly, there's no winning for losing with this kind of weather. But, this is just today. Like, maybe tomorrow the curse will be lifted. Mm-hmm. And if not, do you know anyone who knows how to lift curses?
I don't.
No.
If I knew someone who could lift curses, I would know someone who could place curses. And I got to imagine that person is busy right now.
Yeah. I would hope so. We could certainly use some work on that front. But yeah, Bob, I'm sure you didn't come here to talk about
the weather.
About the weather and Apple Maps, which I guess is the other part of
it's
that. It's all
good.
You came here to talk about your career, your trajectory through design. And you grew up in sort of the Cleveland area in Ohio.
Yeah.
I was reading you went to a all-boys Catholic school that was right on Lake Erie.
Correct.
That sounds like it's going to be pretty cold.
Oh, yeah. We did things like PE was held outdoors in the wintertime in shorts and T-shirts.
What? No.
Well, I know.
Absolutely
but
not.
But the mascot of the school was the Vikings. And I think the middle-aged dudes who taught PE, took that too seriously.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the Vikings got frostbite, I would bet.
Yeah, and they wore big furry coats and they could grow beards. Like I still can't grow a beard.
Sort of famously hairy, very insulated from the terrible weather that they're around. Yeah. I think that's your dog over there. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Is he like a little white furry dude?
Just a real nice little floof, kind of a peachy hair. I love that.
Yeah, that's Toby.
Toby's great. Toby has immediately vanished.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Toby likes to follow Kathy around.
That makes sense. That makes sense. But so, you're in the cold, but you're also at that point, discovering kind of early design through the newspaper, through working on the newspaper at high school.
Yeah, my senior year, I was editor of the high school newspaper. And they told me, well, we can do it like the way we've always done it. And we'll do 3 or 4 issues for the whole school year. And that involved having everything typeset for real and sending it out and all that stuff. So all we would be doing is functioning as journalists.
Yeah.
Or if we took control of the means of production, we could publish an issue every month or even more often.
Well, what an appealing thing that would be.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I was coming at it from the journalistic perspective. Oh, well, if we do more issues, we can write more stuff and the thing can function in a different kind of way. And what I discovered is that the process of having to put the paper together by hand back then, there are no computers for anything.
This is all paste up.
Paste up. This is 1978, 1979, somewhere in there. There was just something really satisfying about the process of physically doing this.
Oh, yeah.
We typed all the articles on IBM Selectric typewriters.
Oh.
We would change out the little golf ball so we had different typefaces. You type the articles in columns, you Xerox them down, you put rubber cement on them, and you'd try to like design this newspaper. It was a riot.
Yeah. Are you like, is the final product like something that you're sending off to be actually?
Yeah, we were doing paste ups.
Wow,
We were
yeah.
doing the paste ups as high school kids.
So like you're actually essentially doing design practice then in high school.
Right, without
all the
really
tools.
even knowing that
Yeah.
that's what we were doing.
At what point does that kind of become like, well, this is actually interesting enough that I want to be doing this?
It was then like the guy who was the faculty advisor for this thing. We were talking one time, and I was like, I kind of like the writing part of this is okay, but I really like this assembling of everything together
Yeah.
part of it. And he's like, well, that's a thing. You can do that. And I was like, okay, well, what is it? And he knew that was graphic design because his
Wow.
wife did that on a freelance basis.
But that's a pretty lucky break, actually.
What an unbelievable lucky break. And he was even like, and here are the schools that are good for this that you
Yeah.
can go to for college. I didn't get in any of those schools, but whatever.
What did he encourage you to apply for?
RISD.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He's like, you should go to RISD. They'll think you're crazy. And I was like, why? And he says, because knowing you like brush your teeth after every meal. They'll think you're nuts. So I got waitlisted and never got in. And I went to Kent State instead, which worked out spectacularly well. Probably
Yeah.
better than it would have if I had gone to RISD. So
Staying in Ohio.
yeah, staying in Ohio, like about an hour from the folks. They gave me scholarship money. It
Oh,
was
hey.
really fantastic. Yeah.
So you're starting at Kent State. Like, what do you start to get exposed to once you're there?
I mean, the program there was like beautifully constructed by this guy who was at that point had been there for at least 20 years, J. Charles Walker. He was hired to start the program and then over the course of decades designed the living daylights out of that curriculum.
I mean,
it was
that's
incredible. It was
that-
incredible.
It clearly worked because, I mean, you've been doing this now for like since then. Like,
Totally. Yeah. It was, it was an amazing experience. And probably for me, the thing that like where like the lights really started getting turned on was when I took a letterpress class.
Oh.
So, in the early 80s, again, still no computers. That's over 10 years away.
Yeah.
Do you want something in color? Do you want it not on white? Do you want something that's maybe not in Helvetica?
Wow.
Whatever.
I mean,
It's like-
this is wild thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
could there be such a product? I can't imagine it.
Exactly. So, the letterpress shop had like, I think they had 3 weights of Optima in metal. And I think it was like 14 point. And it's like, I've never really liked Optima, but when it's in metal
Yeah.
and you're like mixing all the versions together in one line, it looks kind of fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be part of why, I don't know, I had a certain reaction to it at that moment. But anyway, yeah, I remember in Akron, Ohio, which was the larger city a little ways away from Kent, there were still people who had like linotype machines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So every once in a while for a project, we would hop in a car and drive to Akron and like, deliver our
Yeah.
manuscript to these guys and they would set, your type in linotype.
Just cast up some letters and
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. But I mean, like, that also must feel so official too when you're, still a student to be like, oh, now this is really, really real.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've paid money, right?
It's made out of lead now, so
It has literal weight.
I must not ingest it because it is toxic.
Yes. And that too. Yeah. Don't wash your hands after you're working with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. So like you're getting exposed to all these things. You're getting to, kind of play around with the letterpress and maybe break a little bit out of that modernist mold that they're
Oh, totally.
shaping
Yeah.
you into.
Mhm.
Like how does that start to evolve in your work as you're going through school?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what it does is it loosens things up, right? And it also means like on the computer, we're used to being able to kind of do whatever we want,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's not super hard. But like on a letterpress, if you want a line of type at an angle, that's not
Yeah.
easy. And so if you want that type at an angle, that's a really, really, really conscious decision
Yeah.
that you have to make. And it involves like serious effort.
Like locking in random pieces of wood and
All of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's happening upside down and backwards.
yeah.
It requires proof after proof after proof. So, I mean, if this is about mistakes, I mean, there's nothing like printing letterpress to get you on board with making mistakes because it's all a mistake,
Oh yeah.
the whole thing until you finally get it locked in.
You want to do multiple colors? The mistakes are
The
multiplying
mistakes are
by the
just
second.
beginning. Yeah, right. Because, it's a separate pass through the press. And
Yeah. Registration, what's that?
Totally, totally. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely started making things, loosen up in that way. And then when I got to grad school, which was also at Kent, at a certain point, I just had a key to the letterpress printing studio. And so I would arrange to have a certain number of credit hours or units or what have you every semester with the letterpress dude, Eric May, the late, great Eric May. And so I would just like dream up stuff, talk to Eric and be like, Eric, does this seem like worth 3 units? And he'd be like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And so I would just like go and like do stuff.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, I would conspire to like get clients and then like print their stuff letterpress.
Oh wow. So you're kind of hustling to
Totally.
make all this
Yes.
work.
Yeah. And then what else did I do? Like one long running project was like making a series of bookmarks where the idea behind them was exploring different kinds of printing processes or like, overprinting ghosts or I figured out how to make a graphite wash. So you get graphite dust and mix it with, some kind of medium and then you can like put it on the press and then you could print with it. And then when it dries, you can smear it around.
Oh my God.
So like ridiculous things like that.
So you're getting weird. You're getting real weird in there.
Yes, I'm doing my best to get weird.
It sounds like it's a great reason not to give out the key to the letterpress studio.
Well, I mean, they knew what I was doing.
I guess, true. Yeah, you are technically supervised in these independent studies.
Yes, technically speaking.
Technically,
there's like whatever, weekly or monthly or semesterly meetings,
It's all in on the up and up, all above board. Everyone is definitely knowing what's going on.
Totally. Except not.
One of the other things, so like you're going to grad school also at Kent State, like continuing right on. It sounds like.
Why did I do that?
A lot of people ask that question on this show.
Yeah, right. Why did I do that?
It would have been a better name, certainly more Googleable.
Why did I do that? We had all of these reviews at the end of undergrad. And at the end of my portfolio review, J. Charles Walker said, hey, have you given any thought to what you're doing, after school? And I was like, I'm just trying to get through this. I don't know.
Yeah. There's no sense in asking a student anything about the future because they can't think that far ahead.
Totally.
You got a lot of things on your mind.
Absolutely. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even sure I remember where I parked my bike on my ride over here, man. And he's like, well, we have a graduate position open starting in the fall. Is that something you'd be interested in? I was like, well, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
So he explained it. Like I tell people what this deal was and they're like, you've got to be kidding me.
So he's basically pitching you on a job, but you are also going to grad school through this job.
Yeah.
What a funny way of like sort of reverse engineering.
The man's playing 3-dimensional chess.
I guess so.
Totally.
I mean, he clearly like he's on a whole different plane of thinking about this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the deal was you get a studio.
Yeah.
Your tuition is completely covered.
Pretty good.
you get a stipend
Whoa.
to live on,
Okay.
which I could kind of live on. Oh, and then you're a TA.
Oh, sure. Yes.
So I taught 3 classes a year, so exactly half time.
Wow.
So it was like, you're a 23-year-old adjunct professor. If you can imagine.
Well, can I tell you, I can imagine because I was a 24-year-old.
There you go. There you go. And so
with all the respect that comes along with
absolutely, you know how terrifying it is.
Yeah.
Like you walk in on the first day and the students don't even look up, right? Because you're obviously not in charge of anything.
Well, so this is a thing that I thought so hard about. Like the very first class I taught as a grad student, I was so terrified of stepping into that classroom. I was, the brain that ended up taking over my entire brain kicked into full gear and was like, you know what I need? I need some sort of gimmick. And then people will pay attention to me and respect me. And so I showed up in the room for a introduction to page layout class dressed in a construction vest and hard hat. And everyone was very confused. Like there was actual construction outside of the building, so it made at least a tiny bit of sense.
There you go. That's a great idea.
Like then I went into this whole 20 minutes about, well, when you're designing a book, you're designing a space, like it's architecture, and so I think
and they're flummoxed.
Oh, I think they left probably thinking is it too late to drop this class or?
Yep.
And at that point, our students were definitely mostly older than me. I would say probably our median age was 27 or something like that at that point. So
that's hard.
I'm not stopping in from a place of great respect, but you're in the same boat.
Totally. Even when I started at CCA, it was CCAC back then. I often had students older than me, and by then I was in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And it's a daunting thing. Now there's no danger of that. I'm older than these people's parents for the most part.
Hey, I'm getting there myself. I think I am older than some of my students' parents now. Oh boy, that's only going to get worse, isn't it? But it's a hard thing to step into a classroom for the first time and feel so intimidated. But what do you end up teaching? What do you step into in those early classes?
So the beauty of the program at Kent is that the entirety of the 4 years was controlled by the major.
Just every single bit.
Every last thing. So
Wow.
what I teach now, there's this first year experience.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? Which most schools have, or they'll call it foundation or core or first year or whatever.
Yeah.
And, those people who teach in that have an extraordinarily difficult job. But my attitude is, if we just made people say what they wanted to do and then put them in classes immediately that were applicable to what they were doing, which was my experience, then you would either figure out, is this right or not immediately? And if you I guessed right, you've got this incredible running start, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the classes they had me teach were those super beginning classes. So the class I taught most was called Visual Organization 1. So it's
what a modernist name that is.
It's starting at rock bottom, baby.
Some real Gestalt kind of
all of that
excitement.
kind of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, unit forms, super unit forms, all of that.
I don't even know what those are, but they sound powerful.
It's so powerful.
I mean, super unit. Who could win in a fight between unit forms and super unit forms?
I know. It sounds like a "They Might Be Giants" song or something.
Yeah, I think that's on that record that they made that was 500 songs from people calling in or something.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's an intimidating thing to step into. But to imagine too, this is the school that you just did your undergrad in. That you just took these classes.
Right. And there's people
3-ish
around
years before.
Why are you still here?
And now you're in charge?
Of anything?
How did that happen?
Yeah, the ridiculousness of it never ceases to amaze me, which increases my gratitude that the thing even happened.
Was there anyone else that was in that boat of
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
And in fact, that's where I met my wife because
Oh,
she was one of
really?
those people as well.
Huh.
Yeah.
So had you like known her in undergrad? And
No,
then...
no, no. She came from elsewhere.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So most of the people in that program had undergrads in some kind of other thing
Sure.
and were doing their grad work to transform themselves into graphic designers. So, and that's why for me it was so great because I had an undergrad in graphic design already. So almost
Yeah.
everything I did was some kind of like independent study.
Oh,
Like
that's...
whatever bullshit I could like conjure up and convince somebody of, I got to do.
That's so fascinating. So you are basically the complete standout of this program because you don't have to do. I did not realize that the other people in the program would not have design backgrounds.
They at least had like visual, like
Yeah.
Kathy's undergrad was in painting, and she had actually even gone to grad school briefly for painting.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
And my buddy Dave Betts, his undergraduate was in sculpture. So it was a mix. I'm sure I wasn't the only person like that, but
Still a lot of unique skills that they're going to have to pick up that you already have.
exactly.
And not only just have, but have the Kent State way of doing that too.
Totally. Yes.
What kind of projects do you end up like inventing along this sort of journey? This journey of independent study grad school, basically.
One of the things I did was I realized that the School of Art had a gallery
Oh.
and that this is back before the internet. So if you wanted to tell people things, you made a poster or you sent out postcards. So I went to the director of the art gallery and said, hey, look, if you can promise me that I get to do everything, I will arrange to get credits for doing this and I will be your designer.
Hey.
And this poor guy, every show he faced the struggle of figuring out how am I going to do this. So he was totally on board.
Thank you. You've come to solve my problem. How
Yeah.
wonderful.
So I just, so I did that for a while. And ironically, that was so successful that the people who ran the design program were like, you got to let other people do this. You can't just hog this thing. And I was like, what? I made the whole damn thing up. It's mine.
We're kicking you out.
So
You're doing
anyway,
too well.
So I had to learn how to share.
That's so funny. But like,
So I would do things like that.
yeah, the invented responsibility that becomes such a desired thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I see that all the time with like a project that no one even thinks of, and then someone will come up with it, and then everyone obsesses about, oh, I want to be the one who does this. I want to be the one that designs these posters.
Right.
It's such a funny thing. But yeah, like you're just finding problems to solve.
Yep.
And
exactly.
that's to fast forward a bit to Sputnik, like that kind of becomes part of the system that you instill in CCA too.
Right. Well, Sputnik, that was another thing I stole from Kent State because Kent State had a thing called
Interesting.
Glyphics, which was the same idea, only Glyphics, I don't think the clientele was the university. But anyway, I took that idea of, a practicum studio where you got to interview to get in and where you're doing real work for somebody or other and sort of transported it to CCAC.
Well, that's so funny because I teach a studio that's not unlike Sputnik, which these days is called Rodeo. It started with past guest of the show, Kate Boone and Burt. But like when we were starting out, one of the few places where we knew of that had a sort of in-house studio model that was also like truly in-house, like meant to serve in-house clients, was Sputnik. And so like that was part of what we modeled ourselves on.
Oh,
But
nice.
it's so interesting that it's like it's modeled on another thing that is
Yeah.
it makes me wonder like if the Kent State thing was modeled on something else and this has just been happening.
I have no idea
Yeah.
about the history of that.
And that's so fascinating though. But yeah, so like to rewind a bit, you're moving towards like graduation. Like how do you start to think about like, well, what are the next steps as you're kind of closing out your academic career?
So yet another nice thing about Kent's program is they had these summer workshops that was called the Blossom program. And they would bring in 3 professionals, each for a week, to do this intensive workshop. So when I was an undergrad, one summer I studied with April Greiman for one of the weeks.
Wow.
And talk about a total head melter. And I was like, California, right? And then when I was in grad school, one summer we had Michael Mannering, Michael Vanderbilt, and Woody Pirtle,
Wow.
which was like, holy shit, Jesus.
This is some good gets.
Total good gets. Yeah, I don't know how they did this, but they did it and it was fantastic. And so, I loved the work of Michael Mannering and Michael Vanderbilt, and they were from San Francisco. And, I finagled like portfolio reviews with them and they were encouraging. And I would just be like, when I go to New York and show my portfolio, people are, dismissive.
Oh.
And completely unsupportive and like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I show it to these guys and they're like, this is cool shit. So, I mean, it doesn't take
You
a
found your
genius.
people.
It doesn't take a genius to realize, maybe going east is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so Kathy and I finished. We got jobs in Cleveland for like 6 months, saved some money, and we drove to San Francisco.
Wow.
And I had never been west of the Mississippi River.
You'd never even visited.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
the kind of thing you can only do in your early 20s. Right? There's no way you would do that even in your late 20s. You'd be like, show me the job and I'll be there.
Yeah.
But this was like, we went there with nothing.
Not even a place lined up. I mean, how would you even? You would have to have a San Francisco newspaper and be calling want ads.
Yeah. I mean, we had a friend who was here already and we stayed with him briefly till we found like a little studio apartment that was super cheap. And then at that point, the clock's ticking, right? We have X amount of money. It's going to last X amount of time. Work the phone, people.
Oh, yeah. Got to get that work.
Yeah.
Where do you end up landing?
We got like little freelance projects for a while. And then I got an interview with Steve Tollison.
Oh, sure.
And got brought on as a kind of sort of serious freelance thing for a while. And then he hired me on.
Yeah.
And that's the only real job I've ever had is working for Steve for about 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you're actually in a studio. You're on the West Coast. Like,
Yep.
It feels like you're living the dream.
Total dream. My God. Yeah. Because the work we did at Steve's was so extraordinary.
Yeah.
And because it was the only like regular job I ever had, I was like, well, obviously this is how this whole thing goes down, right?
Yeah.
We do these great projects. Half of them get in design annuals. All right, great, fine.
I mean, who's going to say no to that?
Exactly. It was so good.
What then draws you away? Like, what makes you want to leave eventually?
So the irony is that Steve was and remains a genius at he's built a machine that generates work of the absolute highest quality.
Oh yeah. Tollison Studios still kicking it. Still doing.
Absolutely. Just extraordinary. And so I got bored. It's like ridiculous and stupid.
Oh, but that's such an interesting, kind of young person thing to be like, oh, I got my dream job. I'm doing work, but I'm not challenged enough by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Then parallel to all this, Steve was an adjunct at CCAC. And once he remembered that I had been a TA, anytime he didn't feel like teaching his class, he would send me. Right? So I would walk into this class and be like, hey, sorry, Steve can't make it today. And he sent me. And the students are like, who the hell is this guy? Right?
You have no relationship with any of these students.
Nothing. And it was just like that first day teaching as a grad student all over again.
Except even less official because you were just appearing.
Like I'm just nobody.
I'm sure he's not even prompting them that this is going to happen.
No, I'm just showing up.
Yeah.
But what I realized was that the students were so amazing. And because I was a real designer at a real design firm, somehow I had, I don't know, a teeny tiny little bit more credibility than I did before. And I realized that I just loved it. And later I saw an ad in, I think it was like ID magazine, that they were looking for a tenure track person. And so I applied for it.
Wow.
And they were like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, I think so. I mean, what are you not telling me?
Yeah, that's a very suspicious question if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Something sounds really wrong.
Yeah, I think their thing was like, I mean, you're in this great place and the work is good.
Yeah,
and
you read the thing about the stabbings, right? The mandatory stabbings.
Exactly. So anyway, yeah. So I applied for that and I got it. By then I had already left Steve's, and Kathy and I had sort of started freelancing, and that was kind of going okay. And I was like, okay, this is the next thing.
Yeah.
And plus, the people who taught at CCAC were all those people who I admired the most in the San Francisco design community. So Michael Mannering, Michael Vanderbilt, Doug Akagi, Leslie Becker, all of these extraordinary designers. And I was like, wow, now these are like my colleagues.
Yeah, that's a wild, like, I mean, talk about affirmation of like, this was the right move.
Right. Not a mistake.
No, you're literally working with these people that
Yeah.
like you looked up to 4 years before.
Right.
That's huge.
It was huge. Yeah. It was also disconcerting. But by this point, I was getting
Academia
better
usually is. Yeah.
hiding like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know how it is. Like when someone's a colleague, there's like a different level of rapport than there is like with students.
Oh, absolutely.
So like, it's like the role shifts and it's like suddenly it's like, okay, you're with us.
Yeah.
Now, and it's cool.
We need you to serve on this committee.
Well, yeah. And then there's all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
there's that stuff.
Yeah. Because they've served on no committees. They're like, aha,
Oh.
now we got the guy to serve on the committees. And boy, did I serve on committees. My God.
We're going to put this person who knows nothing about what this committee does in the role of chair. That'll
No,
go well.
I knew enough to weasel out of all
Hey,
the chair.
You're smarter than I am then.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, boy. And you're like also maintaining a pretty active practice around then. Like,
Yes. Yeah. You have to because the pay sucked. No, I mean,
hey,
we're not gonna rutabaga this part of the
No,
thing.
I
The
understand.
pay sucked.
No.
The pay was worse than I was getting as a senior designer at Steve Tollison's office.
that has still not changed. And also I don't know when this one's going to be going out. My faculty might be on strike for exactly this reason when this one goes out. So, just a reminder. But yeah, like it is a very necessary thing, if you can do it. Like, so a lot of what you're doing around this time too is like a lot of books. You're kind of starting up your book practice.
Yeah, we started with doing books with the Chronicle Books, which is headquartered in San Francisco. So we were
Yes.
doing what are basically called gift books. And that was like a trial by fire. And I think this is right when, like at this point, we have computers,
Yeah.
but it's before you could send files to the printer,
Oh, yes.
right? Essentially, we're using the computer as like a compositional tool,
Yeah.
right? So you'd make your thing in Quark Express, and it's a perfectly fine program for the time.
If you can find the exact point version that is the one that works correctly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then you'd send everything out for Linotronic output, which
Yeah.
was basically the computer photo typesetter interface machine. And then, we would still have to do boards.
Yeah. What an interesting transition place that
was,
is. Because
yeah.
you're like, you're working digitally, you're bringing it back out to analog, and then it's going into its final form. Like,
Right.
That, what an odd intermediary step that is.
It was, yeah. But the other interesting thing about this, and because this is for students, I
Yeah.
think it's worth repeating this. Not everyone saw the introduction of the Macintosh and the software surrounding it as either a good idea or a good thing.
Oh, sure.
There were plenty of people who were like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And Kathy and I were like, well, I mean, we've worked our butts off at these design jobs. We had savings. We were too dumb to know that we should have bought real estate in San Francisco. So instead, we bought computer stuff. So we
Hey.
bought a computer, a monitor, a printer, and a scanner. And I believe that was like $15,000 in like early 1990s money, which would be, I don't know what, 25 or 30 now?
Well, I'm sure all that equipment's not lost value or anything. Not like real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so because we did that, it allowed us to work in a certain kind of way.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which ended up being, little did we know, a kind of competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So what I always tell my students is that, like, whenever there's a technological shift, that's an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? Because there'll be people who either can't or don't want to, proceed on that path.
Yeah.
And so if you're into it and you're young and you have the time and energy to just pour yourself into this and figure it out, that could be what you base your career on.
Oh, and absolutely. And when the change happens, if you are not paying attention, like it will go so fast. And like,
Right.
all those old, paste up designers, like I can't imagine how fast that must have felt to just be like, oh, I can't do any of these things that,
Right.
the people with computers are doing. I was a web designer in my early days, and then I stepped away from web design for, I think, like a year and a half. And in that time, the entire industry changed. And
Totally.
none of the techniques that I knew
Yep.
like work anymore. And that's, that's a weird place to be, but it keeps happening.
Yeah, again and again and again and again.
You just have to be paying attention to what's going on.
Right.
That's a huge that becomes a huge mistake otherwise.
Yeah.
If your bread and butter is Squarespace, maybe pay attention to whether Squarespace is going to be in business 2 years from now or not.
I hope so. My website is on Squarespace, and I've figured out how to customize it so that it does exactly what I want. And so if they go, it's like, I don't want to have to do this again. It'll be like the fourth or fifth time.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like,
what you're describing is the social media death that we're all experiencing right now. Like, well, I guess we'll go over to Instagram. Oh, wait, no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Can't be there. I don't know. Tumblr? No.
Ooh, yeah.
No.
So now I understand why many designers of a certain age, you go to their website and it's like just a screen.
Here's my name.
Here's my name.
You already knew it because you clicked the link. So.
Yeah, here's the email address. We'll be talking.
Yeah. Can I tell you from scheduling this, very few of them even have the email address anymore. It's
Okay.
really like truly there are websites that feel like just, essentially a photograph of a sign. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah. So we're not there yet.
No.
But if Squarespace goes, I'm going to be like, oh man.
If it does go, then I hope it goes to that big square space in the sky.
There you go.
It's just sort of cloudy, but also cubic. And maybe then we'll have a circular space, and that will be good in its own way.
Yeah.
Anyway. But like you have the computer, you have the technology.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that you get into with that incredible computing technology is type design.
Mm-hmm.
You actually sold a typeface to Emigre.
Yes.
That's a pretty big deal.
That was very exciting.
It is a typeface of cheeses. Do you want to talk about the big cheese typeface?
Sure. Yes. So Big Cheese and then the follow-up, which is Zeitgeist, were
Yes.
typefaces that I designed with my friend Eric Donnellan. So
Yeah.
Eric did all the original drawings. And the way this came about is I originally pitched Rudy and Susanna on a sort of geometric sans that I had designed.
Yeah.
But as part of it, because I didn't really know what I was doing as a typeface designer, and there were like all these little spaces in the glyphs where I was like,
yeah.
what the hell is that for? I don't need that thing. Let's put some kind of weird something or other in there. And so I had enlisted Eric
Yeah.
to like, could you draw some kind of something and I'll just sort of stick it in there and to make this more interesting.
A little surprise for somebody. Someday.
Exactly. And so the Emigre folks were like, we've got enough oddly constructed sans serif typefaces, thank you. But these weird little drawing things are interesting to us. So why don't you come back and like, pitch us something around that? And it sold like crazy.
This typeface of just cheese pictures.
It wasn't just cheese pictures. It was very odd kinds of things. So like the mascot was this sort of angry looking wedge of Swiss cheese that was walking and smoking a cigarette. There were like
Sort of a New Yorker cheese. I'm walking here.
I'm walking here, get out of my way. So it was things like that.
Yeah.
They were things that looked like weird little conceptual spot illustrations, but weren't. So depending on how you used them, they could mean kind of almost anything.
Yeah. Did you and Eric like have conversations about, well, what are these characters doing? What's the story behind any of them?
Oh, you mean like, do they have backstories?
Yeah. I'm just trying to get you in with probably the Warner Brothers folks, because they seem pretty desperate for just about anything at this point.
Oh, yeah,
And
right.
You got a cinematic universe right here. The Big Cheese cinematic universe.
There you go. I mean, we would talk. So that was a moment in design culture when people were using like icons
Yeah.
for stuff. You might remember like Tibor Kalman at M & Company and the stuff for the Cafe Florent, where they would make these like little signs or postcards or whatever. There'd be a line of type and then some kind of inscrutable icon.
Oh, sure.
Followed by a line of type and another inscrutable icon. But the icons they used were things they would find in various places. So the whole language of like using these kinds of bits of visual language out of context, and then that allowing those things to take on other kinds of meanings, that was in the air. So all we did was just like seed the clouds with even weirder things. And then it took off.
How successful was it?
If I remember correctly, the first quarter that it was released, they sold $20,000 worth of licenses. And this is back when it was there. You couldn't buy it online. So you would have to like, I don't know, I think you'd have to like call them up and give them your credit card and they would send you a floppy disk in the mail. If you want later when we're done, I think I still have like one of the floppy disks in my drawer.
I would love to see that. I mean, the pre-internet situation of like how you distribute anything is so complicated.
It was a nightmare.
Just inherently. Like I've talked to folks in music who like have that exact same problem of like, okay, we put out this catalog and how you get the music is you have to call this phone number and we've got to staff the phone number all the time. And then somebody's got to mail you the thing. And that's its own complicated thing.
Right.
To have that around like font distribution and floppy disks, like usually when I'm buying a font, it is out of desperation because the project needs to happen now.
Right.
And
yes,
to not have that immediacy, that's hard. That's hard.
I mean, I think there's whole foundries that are in business because their fonts are like impulse buys.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there are so many things where it's like, oh, well, if it's only $65,
well,
why not?
I mean, I could use a whole family of this.
Yeah, that capital R is nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to remember that I bought it, too. I mean, I definitely don't have 50 different typefaces that I have never, ever used in a single project.
We're not the only ones, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, students feel better about the, like just meager 100 or so fonts that you have installed on your computer, because I have north of 2,000 and I shudder to think at how much money is involved in that.
Yeah. What bums me out is how many of mine are still PostScript typefaces.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because those are going to go away.
They're all, you can't use them already in the newest version of InDesign. So I've invested in software that lets you, transmute them into OpenType font typefaces. And it seems to work.
Hey,
so
I mean,
it's like, I paid you once 35 years ago and I'm not paying you again.
well, plus you get to keep those amazing bitmap sizes. Who doesn't love those?
Who doesn't love those?
I'm sure it probably just strips those out and uses friends, if you're too young to know how PostScript fonts worked, it used to be that your computer was not good at displaying fonts, and so it couldn't use the same files that the printer used. And so you'd have like a suitcase of different files, and your computer would have to like, oh, you want to use Times? Well, here's a little 12-point pixelated Times that we've specially designed.
Yep.
And when you print it out, it will look only vaguely like that because it's a totally different file
Yeah.
that's being sent.
Yeah, there was a moment when like the achievement of WYSIWYG
Yeah.
was like an incredible thing.
Oh, it's just so magical to be able to kind of vaguely see the representation of what is going to come out of this printer.
Yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of printing going on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's what I made? Whoops.
But I mean, it all works out. But like, so Big Cheese is a success. Like,
I mean, it was all successful enough for me to think that, oh, I should make my own type foundry.
and that's where Font Boy comes
That's where
into
Font
the
Boy
picture.
comes in. Yeah. Yeah. It was not, Font Boy was not successful.
Oh,
Yeah. I think you
Well-
can go to like my fonts, and I think I might have like 2 or 3 things. And I don't know. I'm sure at some point Monotype is going to wake up and be like, this guy is just taking up hard drive space. Get him out of here.
to also bring up Warner Brothers, they're going to do we got to do a tax write-off. Delete.
Exactly.
But I mean, you also, your Font Boy website is still up, and it is beautiful.
Thank you. It's still up. It was made using, what was that thing that Adobe had?
Oh, Dreamweaver.
It was made on Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
And so I can't update that thing.
No.
That's it. It's like, it's frozen in amber. Like, God help me if I need to change a link.
Yeah. It's a very intuitive program. Actually, this is weird because I'm remembering my first time TAing, I had this weird gap between my undergrad and my grad, and I TA'd a couple classes at my undergrad, and one of them was a portfolio class for artists where the goal was for them to build a website, and I think they'd accidentally written it into the curriculum that it had to be Dreamweaver. And I feel so bad for all those folks because none of that is knowledge that they all struggled with it, and none of it is useful, and I don't even think was useful at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was like 2009, so well past the sell by date.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it was written in curriculum, so you can't change it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never even looked
Yeah.
in the Adobe Creative Suite to see if it's there.
Oh, it's still there.
It's there?
Can I tell you? It is absolutely still there. And you know what else is still there? Is Adobe Flash. It's called Animate now, so they're pretending it's a different thing. But I did download it.
Wow. Wow. I thought none of the browsers support it.
Oh, none of the browsers support it. No, it outputs to trash, but
Okay.
it's still available. You can still get it.
I guess comforting.
It's like when you total a car and how they go like, well, you can take the deposit or you can take the car back. And I'm like, well, but the car's destroyed. So what do you mean? How do I take the car back? How does the car work then?
Right. Where does it go?
Yeah. I don't know if you know me, insurance company, but I can't like fix a car, and especially a car that you've said is unfixable sort of by your policy system.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Hilarious.
Yeah. Adobe and their incredible array of dead programs that are still around for some reason.
Cool.
I'm
tempted to download that now and see if I can update. I don't even know where the source files
that
are.
might be the bigger problem.
I'm not even sure who's hosting that site.
These are all questions that you had to worry about before Squarespace, students. It's truly, it's a different world.
It is a totally different thing.
The internet. What an incredible place that we've, built for ourselves to feel sad about all the time.
Makes you want to just publish a magazine. Just send me something in the mail, people.
Yeah. 2025, I think our slogan is back to print. We're going back to print. We're going to take over the cigar shops of the world back again with magazines.
There you go.
Push out the cigars. Stinky. Who wants them? And then everything hopefully will go back to normal. That's what I have to lean on. Please, God, let that work. So you're doing a ton of work during this time. And you're also getting into 95 is when Sputnik is getting started.
Right. And the first kid is born.
Oh, your first kid is born at the same time too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So those are two kind of big life transitions to be taking on a huge project that is also a class and all the infrastructure around it. and then be dealing with sleepless nights and, like,
Yeah. It made it difficult for me to be polite sometimes to our internal clients who were, let's just say, they were not often suitably appreciative of my students' efforts.
I don't know what you mean. I've never experienced this. Yeah, I mean, especially when you're starting out on something like that. I get how, it feels bad.
Right.
It's a hard thing with a class like that, like finding what the right amount of guff that the students are allowed to get is. Because they do need some guff. You got to make them feel like it's not just like a total, like, woo, wow, from half court, you got it.
Yeah. No, I think that was really valuable for everybody. The whole, like, sort of, I don't know if it's analogy or whatever. The way I would explain it is that when you're in school and you're making projects and you get to critique day, right? You feel like you're done. The project is done.
Oh, it's magical. It's perfect.
Right? Exactly. But when you're working, critique day is just the first presentation of many.
Yes.
Right? And it might even only be an internal presentation at which the creative director comes in and blows up the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you start over. And then eventually the client sees it and then a whole new process unfolds. So I think for the students in Sputnik, that's probably the most valuable thing for them to learn, right? Because we would spend a lot of time making this beautiful stuff. And then, we would do the best we could in the interviewing process with them to get aim the thing the way it should go.
Yeah.
But there'd be times where people would come in and they'd just be like, hey, thanks. Do you have anything else?
Ooh. That's the
hard.
one you don't want. That's the
hard.
one where there's nothing to be gained for anybody.
Yeah.
Full resets are never fun.
No.
But
because of course the deadline is still the deadline.
Yeah.
The way I would describe my role was as a chaperone.
Oh, sure.
Right? So the student pitches the client.
Yeah.
While we're all in the room.
Absolutely.
And I'm just there to every once in a while be like, hey, don't forget to tell them about this other little thing. Okay. Right. And then be like, oh, right. Yeah.
But that gives them the experience of leading the meeting too. And
right.
Yeah.
All valuable stuff that you don't get in a regular studio class.
No. And to even go back to what you were talking about with the whole aspect of the crit is the middle thing. It's not the end thing. Just working in teams, working on something like that is such a mind change from how a lot of education works, where you are just like, it's isolated and then the thing essentially is dead as soon as it's finished. Mm-hmm. It goes in a box and then the box is sealed and entombed in concrete and you never touch it again.
Yeah.
Like for that to be a middle thing is such a hard part of a project, let alone like negotiating like, oh, who actually has ownership of this thing, who is going to be I want my direction to win and it didn't win and now I hate it.
Yeah. Usually the way I would do it is I would assign the project to one student.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is your thing.
Oh, interesting.
Make it happen. There were some projects where the client that were higher profile.
Yeah.
And the client would be like, I need you to throw a little bit more resources at this thing. So we would put 3 people on it and tell them, look, they're going to pick one of these. And then the other 2 of you are going to move on to these other things I have waiting for.
Oh, interesting.
So they would at least know that if they weren't picked, their semester wasn't over.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah. And you've learned something.
Yeah.
We all have file after file after file of early studies of stuff that we either decided not to show.
Yeah.
Or did show and were wrong.
Yes.
For whatever reason. But nonetheless are interesting. Right? It's like, so rather than thinking of them as failed concepts or directions, I try to think of it as R&D.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's like, okay, well, that didn't work for this, but I'm going to remember this thing where I did this thing to this thing, and then I crumpled it up and scanned it.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Right? That's coming back.
Maybe that's just sitting in the background and you'll find the place to use it. Or
Totally.
maybe it is a technique thing. And
Yeah.
you're like, now I know how to do this.
Yeah.
like that is also sort of a good learning experience too. One of the other things that I was listening to a podcast that you recorded with one of your former students, James Edmondson of Onotype, and
National treasure.
Absolutely.
James Edmondson.
That's why Nicolas Cage was trying to steal him to read a message that had been tattooed on his back in invisible ink.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, James, if you hear this. Anyway, apparently, like what you tell to most of your, or at least what you did to his classes, like at the start of every term is like, this is supposed to be fun as like kind of a mantra to carry people through. And I was really like, I found that so touching because I think there's multiple truths to that as well. It is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, you want to spend the rest of your life doing this, right?
Yeah. But that's the other part of it, though, too, is like it. And there are times when it has been the first one just really earnestly. And there's that second time where it's like I'm at a low ebb and it's like, oh, this is supposed to be fun. Like it becomes this question. And that I think that it could be both,
right?
Just within the same phrase is such an interesting thing to be like putting out.
Yeah.
It's not pulling the all-nighters, I imagine.
No, I mean, if you have any sense whatsoever, you figure out how to not have to do that pretty soon. It's like it's an unsustainable way of working.
Yeah.
Like if all you've got is like hours to throw at something, you need something besides that.
Now, what if you don't have any sense? Speaking for a friend.
Then at some point your body will just deliver the news.
Oh, that's what I've been feeling. Okay, that's good to know. Any information is helpful information at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
So I am curious, like, are there any other like kind of stories that have come up for you as you've been sort of thinking about this that you would want to bring into?
Yeah, I felt like when you told me this thing,
yeah,
I was like, well, of course, there's a million stories. Like I'm screwing things up all the time. And then I was like, really? Am I? But anyway, I do have one really good story.
Okay.
So I used to design books for these art collectors. I designed this catalog for them. For the cover, for a long period of the process, there was a certain artwork on the cover. At a certain point, that was changed. And that's fine. However, on like page 3 of the book, there was a caption that said on the cover.
Oh, no.
And it identified that artwork.
Oh.
And it's wrong.
Oh.
And here's what's amazing. I didn't notice for literally years and years and years. They never noticed, or if they did, they didn't say anything.
Yeah. Was it like the cover is like being built entirely separately? So that's like not.
Yes, the cover file is a separate file from the interior file.
You're not going to open up both, like to double check. Like you got enough going on.
Apparently I should have. So, all right, now it gets better.
Oh, God.
So on the cover, I wanted a spot gloss UV, which is for those of you listening at home, if you see a book cover and there's like a shiny area on it.
So that's
right?
luxe. That's beautiful.
Like a little shiny area. It's not foil stamping where it's pressed in.
Yeah.
It's just shiny. It's like super shiny. So I was like, okay, I want these, I think 4 squares to be shiny because that's the grid that appears inside the book somewhere. And I like the idea of like bits of structure from the interior of a book sort of migrating to the surface as a way to sort of clue us in. All right. So that's all good. Fine. The way the printer wanted me to indicate where that spot gloss UV goes, because it's clear, you have to spec it somehow.
Yeah.
So it's on a separate layer and it has a solid Pantone color where I've changed the name of the color from whatever it was, whatever orange it was, probably orange 021 or something, to spot gloss UV, right?
Seems pretty obvious.
That seems nice and straightforward. The books come, and it has 4 orange squares on the cover with spot gloss UV on them.
But yeah.
Here's the thing.
Wait, so
It looks great.
so they hold on. They did both?
They did both.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
Because then they're having to do.
I don't know. And I also don't know why I didn't get
That's
a
baffling.
proof.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a ways back. I mean, now when we do books, we get essentially press proofs.
Yeah.
That are wrapped around a dummy book, so you can see exactly what the cover is going to be. There's one right there under that little pile. So that's
Holy hell, that looks like a real book.
it is a real book, but it's blank inside.
Oh.
It's
That's an expensive notebook that you've created there.
I have, yes, but it's like that's how we proof things.
Yeah.
Now. So anyway, somehow, so it was like mistake piled on top of mistake. For that thing.
But like, I also feel like the mistake is not yours. That is definitely like they would have had to do some work in pre-press to be like, oh, this is both.
Right. Clearly, this is what he wants.
Actually, I'm going to make 2 layers from this one layer that he made.
Yeah.
Because obviously he wants the orange too.
Yeah. I feel like it's still my mistake because, I'm the designer and I'm on some level responsible. And,
I guess so.
designers are those kinds of people where it's like, of course it's my mistake. Obviously.
We've got to
I
own
must
it.
have done something wrong.
Yeah.
How else could this have happened?
Well, now you're really getting into, my mentality of self-blame and self-defeat.
Totally.
You
yes. Yeah, it's built in.
It is something that is very common among us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
If the general population had as much of that as we did, we might actually be in a very different country right now. Not necessarily a better one, but certainly quite different.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me in your home, Bob.
Sure. Thanks for coming. This was so fun. I really appreciate it.
I really I emailed you this, but it really felt like when I heard that episode, it felt like finding someone who was on my same wavelength. Teaching should be a fun, joyful thing. And many people have heard, or who have seen me in class know that I do the Muppet arms thing all the time. And the second you were described as waving your arms around to, introduce a project, that's Kismet right there.
There
That's
you go.
Kismet and that's Kermit.
That's good.
But thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Pleasure. Totally.
Where can people find you if they want to, find out more about your work?
There's the website,
Yes.
offwar.com. There's a nice interview with me that my buddy Eric Hyman did when I was named a fellow of AIGA San Francisco.
Oh, yes. That is a beautiful interview.
Yeah, Eric's a great guy. Eric is someone you should have on the podcast, totally. One of the smartest people I know and a fantastic designer. Yeah, I think those are the main places.
Yes. So go look Bob up. And also, hey, maybe go to Font Boy. Buy some fonts. Why not?
Well, go to My Fonts and search for Font Boy because the
you don't want to deal with the payment infrastructure.
It doesn't work anymore.
That's fair. I mean,
it's just a display. It's a beautiful display, but that's all it is. Classic graphic designer.
Yeah. I hope somebody wants
Beauty without functionality.
a beautiful display is what I aspire to be someday. I don't think I'll get there. But thank you again, Bob.
Sure,
and also, hey, thank you to the one, the only, the great Orion Cortez, who edited this episode. And one more thank you to all of you out there who are listening to this right now. If this is your first time hopping on this moving cable car and you want to continue riding the cable car, I guess, for the purposes of this metaphor, be sure to subscribe wherever you found the show. Or if you found it just floating out in the ether, out in just a big puddle next to the streetcar that you stepped in because of all the rain that I brought to San Francisco. Sorry again. Well, then visit us on the web at dididothat.design to find out where you can. There, you can explore our full catalog and find some good images that go along with each and every episode. If you've got a moment, please rate, review, and share this show. Written ratings on Apple Podcasts are especially helpful, and telling a friend is an even bigger one. This has been Did I Do That from the Old Bay itself, San Francisco, a nickname that I'm trying to make work and it won't work. I'm Sean Schumacher, and as we always say at the close of every episode,
I don't know. What do we say?
that's what we always say. Okay, bye.
Even when you're 18 or 19 and you're in college, well, I guess I'm just speaking from my own point of view, but I felt like, oh, these people who are my teachers, they're actual adults.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Oh, how little they know.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, my dad once told me, just remember everybody everywhere is just making it all up as they go along.
Yes. Oh my God.
And it's like, wow, thanks, Dad. That feels so true to my life.
So true, but also so unsettling to tell to
Absolutely.
like, oh, that you like this society? Well, it's on just it's like there's no foundation underneath.
It's a house of cards, kids.
Just rocks and stones piled up on the edge of a cliff. You have no idea how little stands between you and chaos.
That's right.
But like trying to make them feel a little better about that.
Right.